Now, on the government side, what I noticed is that there's a lot of inexperienced agents on this case, and I kind of found that out today. During they examined one of the witnesses was an actual HSI agent, and for those that aren't familiar, I used to work for this agency for 10 plus years. So these agents all have like less than 5 years in the field, and New York is their first field office. So, like one rookie mistake they made, for example, was when they arrested Diddy, and they did a search warrant at his hotel. There was $9,000 cash in there, and they seized that as evidence. That was stupid. They shouldn't have done that. And the defense actually started like attacking the agent for that. Like, why'd you seize this money? And she was like, oh well, bulk cash smuggling. Well, it's really hard to articulate that it's bulk cash smuggling when we know for a fact that that money is legitimate more than likely, because this is a rare situation where we got a crime that isn't profit dependent. It's a crime of just perversion and his personal
Yeah, he
satisfaction.
wasn't
But
making money from it.
he wasn't making money from this, so for them to seize that money, that was a rookie mistake. And then because they asked her how long have you been on the job and stuff, and she said, oh, I've been on for 5 years before with the human smuggling group in New York. And normally, and I could just kind of talk about this, you never want to take money in a criminal case unless you can unless you're sure that it's proceeds from criminal activity or is like actually important and relevant from an evidentiary standpoint, because seizing money is just problematic and creates issues and headaches for you that you don't need. Because like before the money situation came up, the agent was smooth on the witness stand. She was like very credible, very sharp, very able to answer the questions, which they teach you this in the academy, so it's her job. But once that money came up, she started unraveling a bit. And in my head, I was like, that's a rookie mistake. Like, never touch money or never seize money unless it makes sense, because it creates liability for you, as she's learning now in trial. Because in trial, everything comes out, right? So that was a mistake that they made. And then I know the case agent on the case, the guy that put this whole thing together, though impressive for him to do a case like this, only 4 or 5 years in, um, you know, he's just not as experienced. So, I see some kind of a little bit of inexperience from the agent side. It's still a big case. It's still good. Obviously, there's a lot of coordination going on, but there's blunders on both sides to some degree. But the AUSAs are very strong on this thing, and there's 6 of them, which I've never seen that many AUSAs on a case. But the other thing I'll also say is people got to keep in mind, the feds typically don't lose. This district, Southern District of New York, is very good. It's very popular. They've done some of the biggest cases in history. Well, there's taking down the La Cosa Nostra in the 80s by first utilizing RICO with Mayor Giuliani, former Mayor Giuliani, or going after Tekashi 6ix9ine, Casanova. They take in a lot of big cases. So the Southern District of New York doesn't take cases unless they're going to win, and HSI New York is a good office. So what I predict is there's a lot more to this case. The reason why they put Cassie first instead of last, because you typically put your most powerful witness last, is because she's like 7 8 months pregnant, and they were making it a kind of an urgency to get her off the stand by Friday. So that's why they were kind of rushing through the testimony to get her out of there.
Yeah, I was seeing you. I was watching a live, and you were saying that you didn't necessarily agree with that because he's fighting for his life, and so you
Yes.
can't necessarily take her pregnancy as a priority over his freedom and his ability to be able to defend himself. What do you think
Yes.
about her whole pregnancy and whether or not that played a huge role in what's going on with the jury and everything like that?
Yeah, yeah. So okay. So Diddy kind of shot himself in the foot here, and I'll explain why. So, and we got to kind of go backwards so this all makes sense. And guys, tell me if I'm getting a bit too technical or I'm moving fast, because for me,
Nope, you're
this is
doing well. You're doing perfect.
all right. Cool, cool, cool. Because I know I'm using jargon and shit like that. I want to make sure people understand. So we got to go backwards to understand this. So as you guys know, Diddy got arrested, right? And he put up a very impressive bond package. He put up his house in Miami. It was fully paid off. He put up a bunch of money. He put up a bunch of his assets. And I'll be honest with y'all, any other defendant that put up that kind of money in a criminal case typically would be released. But he never got bond. They didn't let him out. Now I can see why, because evidence in the case shows that he was beating on Cassie or whatever. And typically there's 2 things that come to play when they do a bond hearing. It's, are you a flight risk, and are you a danger to the community? Now, as far as being a flight risk, he surrendered his passport. A lot of people don't know this. He surrendered his passport and was coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office even before he got arrested. He was telling them where he was going. He was being very transparent with them. So the flight risk thing isn't a thing. But then now that I'm like looking at the evidence, I can see why they didn't want to give him bond off the violence thing, because of the beatings on Cassie, right? Because there showed some pictures of her pretty bloodied up and beat up. So that's number one. So since he didn't get bond, he requested what's called a speedy trial. And when you request a speedy trial, they got to get you pretty much in trial within 70 to 90 days, if I'm not mistaken, right? Uh, within those lines, I just can't. It's a little hazy in my head, and I haven't slept, so sorry about that. But he gets a speedy trial. Now, what happened though is that obviously with the volume of this case, there was like 4 terabytes of information. It's an enormous amount of information to go over. And then I don't think his legal team knew that Cassie was pregnant, because once they found out that she was pregnant, they tried to push it back, because obviously it doesn't look good to have um, a sex crime victim pregnant on the stand, because it would make her look even more vulnerable, right? Which hurts the defense. She's walking into court, waddling in and shit like that. She's like about to burst open. So it looks good for the prosecution. So Diddy wanted to delay it more, and they said no, because we already got things going. So that kind of ended up shooting him in the foot. But the reason why he requested the speedy trial is because he didn't get bond. Whenever you don't get bond, they typically want to do a speedy trial. But if you do get bond, they let you, the defendant doesn't care about a speedy trial because he's out and about. So that's kind of a blunder that kind of occurred in this situation.
So the boyfriend
Excuse me,
is
guys.
in
I'll take
there.
my stuff.
Is
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, bro.
No, no, no. I was just saying. So the boyfriend is in there watching the entire time, because from my lens, it's almost like, considering how he came into the situation, that Diddy was paying for him to train her, and then obviously we knew what happened, and then with the whole FaceTime situation. Do you think that, or is it your impression that he's finding stuff out for the first time, or you know what I'm saying, that he's been familiar, that she's been transparent with the whole situation, and nothing that she's saying on the stand is a surprise to him?
That's a good question, bro. I think if Cassie was smart, she probably kind of warned him what might come up, right? And I think he already knew that this whole grape allegation came through. But the thing that the defense kind of did a really good job here is they basically inferred through the questioning and what they did. Hey, look, were you really graped, or did you just say that you were graped so that you wouldn't deal with the accountability and the embarrassment of cheating on your boyfriend who ended up becoming your husband? And I
Yeah.
think that's when things really, took a turn. Like, oh, like did she, you know, there's all this stuff that she's doing, right? Like where she's talking to Diddy after they have consensual sex, after they see each other or party, all this other stuff. Were you actually raped, or were you just embarrassed and you didn't want to come off as a cheater, right? And remember, they had painted a picture of her being promiscuous in the past with the other relationships. So any reasonable person now is going to kind of doubt her story, which is the whole thing that the defense is doing. Now, as far as the boyfriend goes and his knowledge, I do think that he was aware of what was going to come out in court. But what I will say is that it's very obvious that he's extremely perturbed whenever she talks about the sexual stuff. Because I'll look over at him, and he tries to keep a straight face, but you can see his skin start to like change colors. So I think any man, dude, at this point, hearing the things that we've heard and seen the things that we've seen. I mean, she's put some very graphic stuff out there. Like one thing I remember that she said was, I want you to, and I'm gonna clean it for YouTube. She said something along the lines of, I want you to have my legs behind my head, so that I can feel that raw, thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
had a bunch of, very explicit messages like that. So there's no way, even with him knowing that this was coming, to actually see it play out in court, it definitely perturbed.
And she
Mm.
pregnant with another kid too.
This might be a stretch, Myron, but what was the back and forth in terms of visual between Diddy and Cassie? Like, did they look at each other? Did she? What was her body language towards him, if any?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's tough because the way that the court is situated, right, which actually pissed me off. They have the AUSA table in front, right? So damn, I wish I had my notebook. I could show
I
y'all a
see. I
diagram of
seen your drawing, your diagram too.
yeah, you know what I might do? I'll answer this and then I'll go upstairs real quick and I'll jump because I don't want to lose service with y'all in the elevator. And I'll show y'all a quick diagram. But to answer the question, Diddy's back is to the audience. You can't see anything, but that's because his table is like right up on the stand, so it's really hard to see what he's like, his facial expressions. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's he would look over at the jury quite a bit. Cassie was kind of just stone cold looking at the person I was asking her questions. I never really saw her eyes deviate. Clearly the attorney's office told her to, because they prep their witnesses and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm sure he's boiling in the back of his mind, because they did show quite a bit of text messages between her and Diddy that were amicable. One text message that stands out to me, that they showed today, back in like May 7th of 2020. Um, they had a conversation, and she admitted like, hey, you know, I had this beautiful life thanks to like meeting you, right? Then next thing you know, a couple years later, she's like pushed working with the feds to get him indicted. And they never met after 2018. It's very important that you guys, realize like after the Kim Porter funeral, she never actually saw Diddy again, despite the fact that they said that they would have a closure talk at some point. Um, but yeah, that's something that came out also that was interesting.
Mm. What does he look like? Is his hair completely gray?
Yeah, his hair's completely gray. He's shorter than I thought. He's about probably 5'8". Um,
Jesus.
yeah, his hair's completely gray, man. And he wears every day. He wears like a sweater with like a white shirt underneath and some slacks, and that's pretty much what it is. And he sits in the middle of the table between his attorneys, and he's I see him going back and forth like talking with them and stuff. He'll look back periodically. His sons were in the courtroom pretty much every day. The one, I forget the son's name, that was Kim Porter's son, and then the lighter
Yes.
skinned guy, I know those two in there, and then the other guy that kind of has like blonde hair with glasses. I think those are three sons, if I'm not mistaken. They were in the
Yeah.
courthouse every time, and he would look back and blow them kisses and stuff.
Myron,
Yeah.
do you have do you have any information on whether there is a witness that disappeared?
If there's a what? I'm sorry.
Do you have any information concerning the witness that supposedly disappeared for this case? Like it's supposed to be another star witness.
Oh, no, I don't. I'll be honest with you. But what I will say is that the girl from Danity Kane, I forget her name, Dawn something. She hit
Yeah.
the
Dawn
stand today with
Richards.
30 minutes left, and she didn't waste no time, bro. She went into Diddy coming downstairs, yelling at Cassie about not having some eggs ready, trying to hit her with a skillet, kicking her and punching her when she was on the floor, when she's in fetal position, dragging her upstairs. Like she didn't even, she ain't hesitate. She just started coming and swinging, talking about the violent acts that she saw. But
And do you
yeah,
think Albie Shore, because he was on the news talking, do you think he's gonna testify to anything?
say that again. I'm sorry,
Albie
guys.
Shore, do you think Albie Shore might testify to anything?
I'll be sure. Who's that again?
So
That's
that's so one of the kids, one of like his adopted kids.
the light
Um,
skinned one.
yeah, it's actually Albie Shore's son.
So he was on the news and he said he might testify. So I was wondering if you
Is it the
thought,
taller one that kind of looks like Chris Brown with the blonde hair? Because I saw one
yeah,
guy
I
there.
yeah,
think
he's
so.
real light skinned. He got the
It's the taller
unibrow.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
I doubt he's going to testify, and I'll tell you why. He's been in the courtroom listening to all the testimony. That's a big no-no for witnesses. So the fact that he's in a courtroom watching the proceedings, there's no way that they're going to let him testify on either side.
I was listening to you say. I think you said that Lil Rod is the reason why his homes got raided.
Yes, yes. So yeah, yeah, let me break that down. And Anton, real quick, bro, I just want to say thank you for showing me love the other night, bro. That's why I made sure I'm tired as fuck, but I had to jump on this stream and give y'all some
No,
value,
I
bro.
appreciate you, bro. The value that you have. I think that you are probably the most thorough person that is breaking down this trial.
I
Um,
appreciate that, bro. But I had to come in and show love, man, and give you guys anything that you guys asked for. But to answer that question with, I'm sorry, what was the witness that you asked about again?
Lil Rod.
Oh yes, 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 Little
Yeah,
Rod. Okay, so for those that don't know, Little Rod is a guy that worked under Diddy. I think he was like an engineer slash producer slash whatever. And obviously, by virtue of being his right hand guy when it comes to that stuff, Diddy has studios at all of his houses. So since Rod was always at the houses doing stuff, he had very intimate knowledge of what the houses looked like, what was there, etc. And that is perfect for the feds to get their probable cause. Because when it comes to the federal system, I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds here, but I'm going to give you all this because I think it's important and a pertinent fact. When it comes to search warrants, right? You got two different types of search warrants. You got federal search warrants, and you got state search warrants. State search warrants, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, they're a joke a lot of the times. Sometimes they don't get stand up in court, especially federal court. They don't hold the same level of they don't get the same level of scrutiny, right? It's very common practice where DEA will use the state to get search warrants to get into houses because trying to do a federal warrant is a lot harder. Now, with that said, I said that so that you guys understand how difficult it is to get a federal search warrant. So the fact that Little Rod was able to get them the PC that they needed to get into a house tells me that number one, he had been there recently before they raided it because the feds typically want what they call 2 weeks of freshness, right? And what that means is the PC needs to be fresh for about 2 weeks. So if I buy drugs from a criminal, right, and he's at a house, I want to go ahead and write a search warrant for that house, I need to basically do a couple of buys, and I need that to have been done within 1 to 2 weeks, which
Mhm.
is what's called keeping the probable cause fresh. And the reason why they do this is because your home, right, is considered the highest threshold of protection under the Fourth Amendment, right? The right to be safe in your property and business and personal effects, etc. So when it comes to getting search warrants federally, they're very hard to come by, and you need 2 weeks roughly of fresh PC to get in there. So I always suspected it was someone very close to Diddy that provided the information to HSI to get those search warrants. But once I found out that it was Lil Rod, and I got it from a very how do I say this, credible source, it connected everything to me because he was one of the few people that actually was in the house and had the direct knowledge that the feds would have needed to be able to get in there.